We're dealing with a problem of immortality. And this means that these accounts remain open, active, and online, ready for hackers, and ready for now, today, AI, to continue the trajectory of that account because they're making money off of the data that we've put online.
Welcome back to the Wealth Actually podcast, the show that features experts, entrepreneurs, and commentators that will give you the right knowledge, planning, and guidance so you can preserve your assets and enjoy your wealth. Learn more and subscribe today at wealthactually.com.
This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes. It is neither investment, legal, nor tax advice. It does not represent the opinions of the employers of the host or guest.
I'm Frazer Rice. People's information and digital legacies are the here and now. Coinbase accounts, email accounts, photos online, healthcare information. These are assets that are scattered all over the place. It makes it extremely difficult for an executor to make sense of all of it. Dexit plan has been formed to deal with this issue. Tatyana Thurston and Natalia are here to talk about the problem, the steps in place to help deal with it, and all sorts of interesting vignettes around physical issues. Tatyana and Natalia, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you for having me.
This is a new frontier for Wealth Actually. You are the first two-person interview I've done so far. So it looks like the technical issues seem to have gone away. That's great. But we're going to talk about something that I think is the driver for your new company and something that's important to me because when I'm advising people around a lot of different topics, either estate planning wise or wealth management wise, the digital asset question comes up. And you've formed this new company. Tell us a little bit about that. And more importantly, tell us the problem that you're trying to solve around digital assets.
Okay, so I'll first start with what is a digital asset, because there's a lot of different definitions out there, and a lot of people have different concepts of what it might mean. First of all, because crypto is in the news quite a bit, it is not just about crypto. Everybody has digital assets because basically if you are logging into an account and it is storing data, you have an account that has assets online, and it could be monetary, it could be social media, which means that the information that's there is very personal to you. It could be that you have reward points you've accumulated. There's all sorts of types of assets that are out there, and there is a pain point problem. Natalia?
Yes, and we started actually, it was interesting. Tatyana just went through the process of writing a will, and she will tell about it. I went through a divorce where we had online business, and it was really, really hard to trace all those online accounts because I had no understanding how many we had and what to do with them and how even to find them. And Tatyana wrote a will.
And just to put a finer point on that, it's not only the monetary assets and the social media accounts and everything that basically requires a password to get into it probably in this day and age.
Yes, and I can tell you more that I lost pictures of my family from my daughter's birth to age 7 because I didn't think that the iCloud password and iCloud identity gone.
No, a very painful thing to go through. And so, Tatyana, as we sort of look at that example and to make the definition a little bit even more in-depth, how else do you sort of think about that in terms of the roles that are played from a will perspective?
So from a will perspective, you have two kinds of sort of entities. You have things where business owners have created online accounts where their business is running off of certain platforms, right? And you also have a personal side aspect. And it may be an influencer, it may just be your personal account. The thing is that we're dealing with a problem of immortality. And this means that these accounts remain open, active, and online, ready for hackers, and ready for now, today, AI, to continue the trajectory of that account because they're making money off of the data that we've put online. So we actually have two things to look at. One is from the business perspective, and how do you transfer a business over? Because maybe you've built a platform for 10 years on Facebook, right? And you have a following which is important to your base. Maybe you're just a mom and you've put all your baby pictures on there, like Natalia. And then what is the loss? What is the impact of that loss? And both are really difficult on families. So estate planning means that we actually need to be looking at these accounts. We actually need to be planning for these accounts, because down the line, it's going to be a heavy impact, whether it's sociological, emotional, or monetary.
So we think about this a little bit further. The concept that these accounts are going to live on beyond the life of someone who created them. Maybe dive into that a little bit, because I imagine you not only have points of risk, certainly during the lifetime, and someone hacking in and pillaging your bank account, or otherwise maybe blocking access or something like that. But what happens when someone passes away? How do those risks translate to the people who are inheriting these properties?
Let's talk about it. We have those certain pain points. The first one, when somebody dies, the executor or administrator, they don't know what is existence. They don't know what kind of accounts the person had, what they wanted to do with those accounts. That's a first problem, because they don't know even what banking, where the life insurance, did they have Venmo, because they don't have access to phone. The second one, they didn't know what that person wanted to do with that account. Did they want to close, transfer, memorialize it? They have no clue. The other one is authority as an executor doesn't mean that you will get automatic access to the account.
Right.
Many people think that yes, it is. No, for Google, it doesn't matter unless you were appointed as an active account manager.
I was going to say those annoying terms of services agreements that no one reads, and you click so that you get, you move on with life and get into your accounts. That's where some of these details are buried, and the intersection between that and maybe what we call estate law and how an executor works. That's where the friction takes place.
Yes, I agree. And many people don't even know that feature exists. Like legacy contact for Meta and Apple, or inactive account manager. Otherwise, when you look at the hierarchy, online tool, we call it custodian tool, outweighs everything what you have in Wheel. If the online tool wasn't enabled, then it goes what kind of language you had in Wheel. If
Right.
you appointed some digital executor, and if that executor was authorized to have access to all your accounts. The third one, it always default to terms of service. Terms of service for basically 99% of each company says, do not give access.
If you were stuck and you didn't do anything and you relied on the terms of service, you could be in a really deep set of troubles. They might delete your account. They may not allow access, or they may make it otherwise very difficult in order to access and do what you think that the person who died with it wanted to have done.
That's why some of these really large companies have a custodial tool. You do have to go to certain settings within the device or within the account. And you can enable these tools so that you can either add what could be a legacy contact. It may not have the term beneficiary on it, but it's important to be able to enact that so that these settings will allow certain access down the line. And a lot of the companies are very particular about that. The larger ones have it, and then a lot of them don't. So knowing which company has the most value to you and those terms of service is really important.
For someone who has an account that lives beyond them, there are identity and financial risks to having that. I can imagine, when you put a credit card on file and, it's auto-debited, or you have information lurking out there, that's a problem. Maybe talk a little bit about how bad that can get.
So I think there's a few issues on that. We all know that there are scammers and hackers. The really important stories that have come out in the past is where AI is enabling recopying your name, image, and likeness, posing as you live on a video stream or live on a phone call, asking for money or data or information. And this is becoming really prevalent. And this is where families, if they want to save and secure not just their reputational legacy, but of course also perhaps crypto, perhaps their banking accounts. It's really important that they understand that they are all subject to this hacking, because probably the likelihood that they have a social media account is there, and that means it has public access.
So let's dive into the tech problem. I can envision, and I've heard before, the concept of, someone passes away and people can't access the computer, the hard drive, the phone, all sorts of mechanisms that hold a lot of this data. I think you could probably extrapolate that to the cloud accounts and things like that where other information is held. How do you help people think about that?
Two-factor authentication. It is your phone, your email. It is gateway to your estate, basically, administration. If you don't have access to the deceased phone or email, you don't know anything about their accounts, first of all. Second of all, where all those codes are coming to.
And how do you fix that problem?
There are some settings on iPhone because everybody has iPhone. Some have Androids. But
right. Beware the green text.
Yes. You have to establish the legacy contact. You have to make sure that specific features are turned off or on, like stolen device protection. If it is on, it's basically impossible to override it. Because if 48 hours, is it 48 or 72, Tatyana?
What she's referring to is that the latest update in Apple has this feature for stolen theft mode, it's called. So it's happened to us on an actual case. Someone had given us a phone and they said, "Can you help us?" The problem was the person had passed away over 100 miles away. And because Apple tracks our location everywhere we go, it's a habitual, we're creatures of habit, right? We go to the same coffee shop, we go to the same store. So they know what our patterns of behavior are. As soon as it leaves that circle of trust, call it, that map of trust, theft mode can become enabled if the setting is on, which means that Apple has cut off any access to the phone. So for people who are dealing with families, let's say, who live across state borders, this is a really difficult task for them because their phone is completely inaccessible because of theft mode, not even because of the legacy contact.
And then, I've seen in movies, and I've actually heard anecdotally, the concept that the biometrics at play, they in a sense turn off too. It used to be you could take the phone and put it up to somebody's face, or you could take their finger and maybe get into the laptop by putting it onto the biometric reader. That world doesn't exist anymore, correct?
Correct. When you're dead, the Face ID doesn't work really well.
Well, and that tells you something, that they can tell whether you're dead or not. And
yes.
I would not have made that comment maybe 6 weeks ago before we started talking about this, saying, oh, geez, these things are getting smarter. So as we start thinking about this, we've sort of analyzed a couple of pain points, areas where if you're an executor and someone's situation comes across their desk and they say, oh, gosh, first of all, I have to try to know what accounts are out there, what social media accounts, what subscriptions, what bank accounts, what crypto, what IP, that type of thing. So getting your arms around that's important. Then the idea of hopefully someone has been organized enough to lay out where the accounts are and how to access them in one way, shape, or form. And we can get into what a good practice is on that. But then if you're the executor / in conjunction with the estate planner / the client, how do you plan for this so that you create a real organized state of affairs for the person who has to actually manage this stuff going forward?
So I think it's important to understand priorities. So everyone's different, everyone's unique. There may be priorities that are, social media based. There might be priorities where there's a lot of crypto at stake or monetary funds, even perhaps reward points. That priority list is best done in an inventory. Where we specialize is in the directives for this. So we've actually researched all these terms of services for hundreds of companies. We maintain this database so that someone can say, okay, if it's company A has 3 options for a directive, and you can select that directive. That means that the executor will then know exactly, hey, this is what needs to be done with this account, and this is what is of value either for the descendants, the beneficiaries, and so on. So first the inventory, but actually the directives is really important.
And by directives, you mean something, maybe an addendum to the will or something like that that says the information or the value, whether it's monetary or otherwise, is going to be transmitted to such and such a person and given full access to it. Is that part of the advice, is to say, for the modern will drafter, let's say that it's a really good idea to have an inventory of what these digital assets are and to set out who gets what in the will, so that there's let's call it a backstop, so that if you have problems with the terms of service or something like that, you have something that goes through probate where somebody opines on that and you can actually get access to it after the fact.
Yeah, so there's 2 points there. There's the access part, and then there's the directive part.
Okay.
There's a language in the will where it's actually specified that this is a digital executor who has the right to access all those accounts and perform all those duties.
Got it. And so in your experience, so Facebook or Google or Coinbase or things like that, for me anyway, in the last maybe 3 or 4 years ago, trying to get somebody on the phone to even have any understanding of what you're talking about was going to be just forget it, not happening. Are they getting better at understanding these situations?
No, they're not. They're not. They don't care. Facebook, it's all AI. You don't get a person on the phone in any case. Coinbase, you can, but it's weeks of waiting for the response, and they will ask you, oh, we lost it. Can you resend it again? All 3 companies you named, they do have policies for transferring or for somebody who is dead. But it's still very, very difficult to deal with them.
I have one thing to add to that, too, and I'll give you a case example, is that we had social media requests to take the accounts down. So Meta, of course, owns both Instagram and Facebook, right?
Sure.
And the images and memories that were left on these accounts were actually harming the kids. So the request was, can we close these accounts out? And of course you can. But Facebook, interestingly enough, agreed, of course, to close the account. And even though it's owned by Meta, Instagram said, no, these photos do not violate our terms of service. So it doesn't mean you can close out both just because it's Meta. It's really, really specific, and it's really in their hands.
Lovely. That will warm people's hearts that have to deal with this.
Yes. It's hard. And can you imagine, we deal with this day after day, but people who have never been in this position, they don't even know where to start.
So walk us through what you think a good scenario would be for someone who wants to, let's say they have, I don't know, a bunch of accounts, both monetary and social media and maybe miles and maybe other things, stuff like that. And they walk into a trust and estate lawyer's office and they say, okay, I've got my house, I've got my liquid assets. That stuff trust estates lawyers know how to deal with. But let's say the lawyers aren't as facile with the digital assets. How can help the person be a better client for that trust and estates person so that it's organized? And then let's start with that, and then I have a follow-up question.
Okay, I would say the first thing is that, there are modern problems and we need modern solutions. And that starts with the discovery and conversation that we do have these immortal accounts online. And for as much as we may not want to think about it, and we can get into other stories about this, but I won't do that now. There are reasons to enact on these accounts, and that means deleting them, transferring, closing out data. It might be biological data. There's a lot of data, and for me, that means data is money. It may not be money to us, but it's money to companies. And what you want done with that is your choice still. So it's important to make that decision. And I think that any estate planning attorney who starts this conversation with their clients is already helping move the needle, because everyone has online accounts. The average user has at least probably around 200 accounts by now. And that's without a work account.
Yes, we developed a tool basically where we have inventory and 15-20 minutes with assigned directives. And it's prompt. Just choose the companies you have accounts with. They don't have to remember. They just, okay, I identified those companies. And we already give them a choice of pre-selected, pre-vetted directives, assign the directive. Then take these report and go to your state attorney. Bring it to them, include it into the will with specific language, appoint a digital executor, you are set. Then you will just have to support it, kind of.
No, so then the next question is, so let's say the paperwork from a will and a revocable trust, et cetera, is up to speed and covers the authority to access these. Then let's say the executor is not the attorney and it's a family member or a friend or something like that, and you're giving them the honor of helping to deal with all of this stuff. What do you deliver to them to help them be prepared for that time when you pass away?
We give step-by-step directions on how to deal with each company. We give what this company has, what kind of account is that, what kind of paperwork you need, what kind of documents, in what time frame. For some companies, it's 3 years. For Meta, in their terms of service, it's 28 days. But hey, you have an account for years there. Anyway, we give step-by-step directions how to deal with this account to fulfill the directive. And if they can't or they don't want to, they can always hire and come to us.
Sure. That's the backstop too, is that you not only provide the tool, but also some support behind the tool and the experience of having dealt with some of those folks, maybe even the contacts to call out one or the other company to maybe get from A to Z a little bit faster.
Yeah, it can be very overwhelming. That is for sure. And I think tech is constantly changing and the terms of service is constantly changing. So we have a lot of, sort of barriers to entry to enact professional executorship and do it as best we can. And a lot of it is because of technical sort of bottlenecks, if you like.
So this is a bit of a catty question, which is how many times have you seen this properly set up? Because I can tell you right now, I feel like I'm pretty fashion forward as far as tech's concerned. I see the issue. I know my estate plan. The poor person, in this case, my sister, who's my executor, she's going to take one look at this and be like, thanks a lot, man. And so I'm guilty as charged, number one. But is anybody doing this with any sort of specificity yet?
Here's the problem. We came across some people and they say that, hey, I have spreadsheets where all my accounts and passwords are written down and my wife will deal with that at some point. First of all, there's no directives for those accounts. And second of all, it's still illegal to log in under somebody else's logins.
The reason we started this company is exactly what you just described. My brother is my executor. And I was like, man, there's no way he's going to know how to start at all because I have my fingers in a lot of different businesses, my personal. And so, that floor plan and sort of direction guide was sort of how we started this. And it became a really intense, with Natalia, it became a really intense research project. We have a database that is constantly being updated. And as executors become executors or as will writers are writing wills, we really want everybody to understand the importance of technology in this process because it's moving really fast. And now that AI has come about, we can even throw in the whole name, image, and likeness problem, which is a whole other sort of, barrier of questions to ask. And
no, I'm going to bring you all back on to tackle that one separately because I think it's worth, its own half hour sort of figuring that out. But in the meantime, tell us a little bit about how people can find you. And one of the things that I think you have on your website and, some of your materials is a digest, really almost like a questionnaire or a brief that allows people to think through where they may have digital assets. It's not just social media accounts and your bank accounts. They're, like frequent flyer miles, things like that. I hadn't thought of that, but yes, that's a big one. Where can people find you, and what kind of resources do you have that people can get familiar with the topic as they embark on this fun assignment?
So the first place is our website, and it's actually, even though our company name is Dexit, which stands for Digital Exit, it's dexitplan.com, because where we are proud is the actual plan of action that we've been able to customize for any individual. And then, yes, we do have a sort of discovery questionnaire so that they can understand exactly what impacts them the most, where they may want to look at these accounts and have a plan for them. Yeah, contact us anytime, email, phone. We're here. We're not chatbots. We want to be sure that you are talking to a human. We know how this AI slop is turning out, and we don't want to be any part of that.
I was going to add on to that, too. I mean, this is not just for the end clients. So for anybody who sort of understands that they have this issue, obviously check out your website and do all that. But I would argue that for the estate planners, the accountants, the wealth managers, et cetera, who are advising clients, it's a good resource to kind of help you get your arms around it in terms of advising people who are looking for help on all these different things.
Yes, because you can have the most through father, compliant language in the will, but the executor will still start with the 0 on day one because they don't know the inventory and they don't have the directives and they don't know how to deal with those accounts.
So give us the website one more time, and then maybe take us out here with a funny story that you've dealt with in putting this company up to getting it up and running.
That sounds great. So Dexit Plan, it's DEXITPLAN.com, dexitplan.com. And I guess I'll leave you with a tech story. We worked with a church here locally, and they had their domain name purchased in 1997. And posted as in your own personal name. The person passed away over 20 years ago. Nothing was ever done with the titling of the church's domain name, but the church has been forever on this domain name. It's been over 50 years. So to remarket and rebrand a .org is not an easy task. And actually, no kidding, it took us 9 months to get the church back their domain name. And that was finding people from 20 years ago, reopening email accounts from a long time ago, getting signatures verified and processed. So it is actually doable, but it is definitely a task. So planning ahead of time would save hundreds of hours and a lot of pain.
Oh, a good object lesson for companies, too, that, it's a good idea to see who owns what, your domain name, any other digital IP, we'll call it, that, if you don't have that in place, you may have a real forensic accounting job in the tech world to get everything back.
That's right.
Yes.
Natalia, Tatyana, thank you so much for being on, and we'll look forward to talking again soon.
Thank you so much.